This week's presentation, we're going to be focusing on causes aside from natural selection that drive evolution. Just as a quick reminder, with natural selection, nature is picking the adaptations that are most suitable. We'll be focusing on 4 processes that are random processes. And at the end, you'll have some questions that I'd like you to answer. They'll be on a separate answer sheet. I'd like you to try to use some of the vocabulary that has been presented, certainly the 4 processes, as well as words like population, species, gene pool, etc. And we'll be focusing on the California sea otter as a particular example. So to begin with, a population is a group of individuals of the same species that live together. And within an individual, there is genes, and we refer to the genes of an individual as a genome. When we refer to all the genes of all the people or all the individuals in a population, we call that a gene pool. Anytime there is a shift or a change in that gene pool because of chance events, we refer to that as genetic drift. So if you look to the right, I've got a picture of some rabbits over here. And this is an example of some of that genetic change. So again, it's easy enough to visually see it, but it's also important to see the genetic differences and understand what we're talking about. In this diagram, we've got rabbits that are homozygous dominant. You've got the 2 up on the top, right there. And then next to them, you've got 6 that are heterozygous, and then you've got 2 that are homozygous recessive. The 5 on the top line are the only 5 rabbits that are reproducing. And those rabbits, their offspring are shown or reflected in that second generation. So you can see there's still genetic variety. You've got homozygous dominant, recessive, and heterozygous rabbits present. In that second generation, 2 rabbits are breeding. Only 2 rabbits are breeding, and they both happen to be homozygous dominant rabbits. You can see in that third generation, all the rabbits are homozygous dominant, so there is no longer any genetic variation within that population of rabbits. We're going to be focusing on two examples of genetic drift, one called the founder effect, which is when an individual or individuals from a population leave or migrate to a new population. And then the bottleneck effect, which is pretty much visually, if you could think of a bottleneck, it causes a severe decline in the population. So here we go.
The soap you shower with? It's because I'll let you in on a little industry. Thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to talk about genetic drift. So genetic drift is a mechanism of evolution that's responsible for random changes in a gene pool. All right, it happens to all populations, but it has a much more visible and drastic effect in small populations. Right, it's driven by chance and not selection, so evolutionary fitness doesn't matter here. It's all random. Natural selection doesn't come into play when we're looking at genetic drift. All right, there's 2 main types of genetic drift. You have the founder effect and the bottleneck effect, and we'll look at some examples of both of these. So let's say that you have a town, call it Darwinville, and you have 100 people that live in this town. And of those 100 people, 95 of them are right-handed, and the other 5 are left-handed. And let's say a small group of about 4 people from this Darwinville decide to move away and settle some new uninhabited land. And let's say these 4 individuals happen to all be left-handed. Right, their gene pool is now drastically different from the group they left because all their descendants will be left-handed. Right, this is an example of the founder effect, when a small group leaves from a population and carries with it a new gene frequency. Okay, so let's go back to our town of Darwinville, where we now have 96 people and only 1 lefty. Right, let's say a freak storm comes through and kills 75 of the residents of Darwinville, including our last left-handed person and all remaining recessive left-handed alleles. Right, and then the new population, now 21 individuals, will have no left-handed posterity from this point on. So this is an example of the bottleneck effect, when there's a random reduction of the population due to some random event. right, so hopefully this video and these examples.
All right, so that explains a little bit about the founder's effect, and the next is really going to be focusing on bottleneck. It's just a picture that depicts what the bottleneck looks like, but basically it can be caused by natural disasters or human-caused disasters, things like overharvesting or habitat destruction. So anytime there's a significant change in that population due to a chance event, it's referred to as a bottleneck. We've also got non-random mating. And again, that simply means that individuals choose their partners. So as a result of non-random mating, some individuals are going to have more of an opportunity to mate than others. Thus, they're going to pass on their their genes to their offspring. And then lastly, mutations, which are any variation that occurs in the DNA, and not all mutations are bad. So they're very helpful within a population. I said we're going to be focusing on the California sea otter. I've got an article in your answer sheet that I'd like you to read. It sort of has a lot of the information that I've got on this slide, but I want to share with you just a cute little video on sea otter behavior, just so you can understand a little bit about them.
Hi, my name's Christy. I'm a senior marine mammal trainer who works primarily with the sea otters. Otters hold pause, and it's called rafting. They do this to stay in groups. Typically, they do it when they're sleeping. If you think about it, safety in numbers is always a good thing, and so they don't want to float away and potentially get preyed upon. Out in the wild, it means holding pause with a stranger. You hold pause with a stranger. So the banging is a natural behavior for otters. They eat a lot of shellfish and a lot of invertebrates, and to crack open that shellfish, they'll bang that food on a rock, or they'll find a rock to bang up against the shellfish to get to the food inside. Sea otters are one of the few marine mammals to use tools. Otters are also seen to, if they find a particular rock that works really well for them, they can actually store it in a loose fold of skin in their armpit area, referred to as a pocket, to hold onto it for later use. So this behavior, rubbing the face is a grooming behavior. It's a really important behavior for otters. They have the densest fur in all the animal kingdom and rely on that fur to keep themselves warm in the cold water. They don't have any blubber or fat, so keeping that fur really clean maintains its waterproofing qualities. A healthy sea otter's fur never allows their skin to be wet, so grooming that fur and keeping it really clean is really important. If you were to try and part the fur down to the skin, you'd never be able to see the skin. When pups are born, they have a lanugo coat, which actually doesn't allow them to dive, so they can just float in the water. And they aren't very good swimmers when they're first born either, so it's mom's responsibility to take care of that pup and keep it with her, and that's the easiest way for mom to do it, is to keep it on her chest. Now, if the mom needs to go off and hunt for food, you may see a pup actually wrapped in kelp. They'll use kelp kind of like a seatbelt to keep the pup in place so that mom can go and forage, and when she comes back to the surface, the pup is in the same place. Young pups especially are going to be socializing and interacting with other young pups. We're really fortunate here at the aquarium where we do have 4 animals under the age of 2, and so they have a lot of energy and very playful with each other, and most of the time spend most of their day playing and wrestling with each other. You would see this out in the wild as well, with young pups interacting with each other, learning social cues, and learning how to be an otter out in the wild.
They are cute, aren't they? All right, so in any event, yeah, they're very cute little critters. All right, and then the last thing that we have before we get into our questions is just a big summary on what we've talked about in this presentation. So here's a memory device, the 5 fingers of evolution. See how we do.
The 5 fingers of evolution. A thorough understanding of biology requires a thorough understanding of the process of evolution. Most people are familiar with the process of natural selection. However, this is just one of 5 processes that can result in evolution. Before we discuss all 5 of these processes, we should define evolution. Evolution is simply change in the gene pool over time. But what is a gene pool? And for that matter, what is a gene? Before spending any more time on genetics, let us begin with a story. Imagine that a boat capsizes and 10 survivors swim to shore on a deserted island. They are never rescued and they form a new population that exists for thousands of years. Strangely enough, 5 of the survivors have red hair. Red hair is created when a person inherits 2 copies of the red gene from their parents. If you only have 1 copy of the gene, you won't have red hair. To make this easier, we will assume that the 5 non-redheads are not carriers of the gene. The initial frequency of the red hair gene is therefore 50%, or 10 of 20 total genes. These genes are the gene pool. The 20 different genes are like cards in a deck that keep getting reshuffled with each new generation. Sex is simply a reshuffling of the genetic deck. The cards are reshuffled and passed to the next generation. The deck remains the same, 50% red. The genes are reshuffled and passed to the next generation. The gene pool remains the same, 50% red. Even though the population may grow in size over time, the frequency should stay at about 50%. If this frequency ever varies, then evolution has occurred. Evolution is simply change in the gene pool over time. Think about it in terms of the cards. If the frequency of the cards in the deck ever changes, evolution has occurred. There are 5 processes that can cause the frequency to change. To remember these processes, we will use the fingers on your hand, starting from the little finger and moving to the thumb. The little finger should remind you that the population can shrink. If the population shrinks, then chance can take over. For example, if only 4 individuals survive an epidemic, then their genes will represent the new gene pool. The next finger is the ring finger. This finger should remind you of mating because a ring represents a couple. If individuals choose a mate based on their appearance or location, the frequency may change. If red-headed individuals only mate with red-headed individuals, they could eventually form a new population. If no one ever mates with red-headed individuals, these genes could decrease. The next finger is the middle finger. The M in the middle finger should remind you of the M in the word mutation. If a new gene is added through mutation, it can affect the frequency. Imagine a gene mutation creates a new color of hair. This would obviously change the frequency in the gene pool. The pointer finger should remind you of movement. If new individuals flow into an area or immigrate, the frequency will change. If individuals flow out of an area or emigrate, then the frequency will change. In science, we refer to this movement as gene flow. All 4 of the processes represented by our fingers can cause evolution. Small population size, non-random mating, mutations, and gene flow. However, none of them lead to adaptation. Natural selection is the only process that creates organisms better adapted to their local environment. I use the thumb to remember this process. Nature votes thumbs up for adaptations that will do well in their environment and thumbs down to adaptations that will do poorly. The genes for individuals that are not adapted for their environment will gradually be replaced by those that are better adapted. Red hair is an example of one of these adaptations. Red hair is an advantage in the northern climates because the fair-skinned allowed ancestors to absorb more light and synthesize more vitamin D. Thumbs up. However, this was a disadvantage in the more southern climates where increased UV radiation led to cancer and decreased fertility. Thumbs down. Even the thumb itself is an adaptation formed through the process of natural selection. The evolution that we have described is referred to as microevolution because it refers to a small change. However, this form of evolution may eventually lead to macroevolution or speciation. Every organism on the planet shares ancestry with a single common ancestor. All living organisms on the planet are connected back in time through the process of evolution. Take a look at your own hand. It's an engineering masterpiece that was created by the 5 processes I just described over millions and millions of years. Can you recall the 5 main causes of evolution from memory? If you can't, hit rewind and watch that part again. But if you can, give yourself or your neighbor a big 5-fingered high five.
Alrighty, so that sort of summarizes our presentation. And now I'd like you to answer your questions.